earlier last night, I had to sit down in my computer chair and try to brainstorm video topics. I was like, okay, tomorrow is the 3rd of December. We got to think about what we're going to talk about. What's going to be our first video of the day, the morning segment. And then I logged onto Twitter, and I was greeted by a Montreal Canadiens prospect who pretty much told me, come on, man, that's too easy. Lane Hudson, everybody. Today we're making yet another video going over the Montreal Canadiens' phenomenal second-round pick in the 2022 NHL Entry Draft. 62nd overall. He's 5'8", 148 as a left-handed defenseman, and Lane Hudson is literally on the path to being the best NCAA defenseman, period. Oh my goodness, dude. This is phenomenal. How in the heck are you going to go out there and have a guy do this well get taken in the second round just a few months prior? This is absolutely phenomenal what has been happening here for Lane Hudson at the Boston University Terrier system. And for Montreal Canadiens fans all over, this is getting everybody super excited as if they weren't already excited before. Lane Hudson, everybody, is the new Cole Caulfield in terms of the guy whom we're going to be making videos about over and over and over again, because when it comes to Lane Hudson and his overall performance, we had already talked at length about the previous draft player comparables, how he had been having a season in the NCAA that was better than Quinn Hughes, than Adam Fox, kind of on that same territory as Cale Makar in some respects. Also, what I wanted to do was give a huge shout out to one of you out there who had contacted me on Twitter the other day. Big shout out over to Raphael. What they said was that they are a Canadiens fan who goes to Boston University, and this is their scouting report. I've seen every game Hudson has played, and it feels surreal to see in person what people make videos and articles about every week. There's another layer to it because he's the type of player where anytime Hudson has the puck, everyone in the stadium perks up because they expect something to happen. You talk about superstar energy, and this guy already exudes that as a freshman. However, yesterday, the Boston University Terriers played off against the University of New Hampshire. And unfortunately, New Hampshire isn't really the best program. They have themselves some okay talent, but at the same time, this school isn't really one of the top talented NCAA programs in the nation. They're just kind of there. And so BU went out there and was able to feast on this team. Ultimately, it was a 6-3 Terriers win, and it was a beautiful game for any Montreal Canadiens fans watching because Lane Hudson himself had 3 assists in the process. Now again, we just gotta remind you, the NCAA is a men's league. You have a lot of players in this hockey league that are upwards of 24, 25, 26 even years old. The youngest guys are 18, you have a lot of older folks thrown in there, and for the BU Terriers, Lane Hudson is one of their top point producers at 18 years old, 5'8", 148. He's small, and that's why he slipped all the way down to the second round. We had already talked about this in prior videos, but the way he moves, the way he scores, the way he creates offense, and the way he's so dynamic in the offensive zone, Lane Hudson should have been taken a lot earlier, but that's okay, because the Montreal Canadiens are ultimately reaping the benefits here. With Lane Hudson's 3 assists from yesterday's game, he now has a total of 17 points in 13 total games played. And that already, in and of itself, is phenomenal. Way over a point per game. He's a freshman, he's a defenseman, he's playing on the second pair, etc., etc. But let's go over onto Hattie K's Twitter, because what they did was they talked a little bit about the game itself. What's even crazier is that he could have had more assists and points. Almost every pass he attempted in the offensive zone was to a player in a dangerous area. Not the toughest competition in New Hampshire, but still, it's absolutely insane. Meanwhile, if you go over to the NCAA in its entirety from the past 22 years, so starting in 1999 up until now, and you sort by defensemen who are 18, and you go by points per game, Lane Hudson has a 1.31 points per game, which trumps Adam Fox, who is second overall at a 1.14. Werenski, he was even 1 point per game, 36 points, 36 assists in his 18-year-old year. And then you have everybody else that follows. Weirkoch, Luke Hughes, Seamus Casey, Falk, Keandre Miller. Lane Hudson was better than everybody. And in fact, if you sort this by U20 players, so you include guys that were a tad older than Lane Hudson when putting up these numbers, Lane is still first. He is still first overall, and you have a few extra names that are added there. Jake Sanderson is a 19-year-old. Lane is doing better than him. Quinn Hughes as a 19-year-old. Lane is doing better than him. Here's a tweet that I wanted to show you from Brian Wild. I believe the greatest NCAA Division I season for points for a defenseman in the Draft Plus One season is Brian Leetch, who in 1986 had 37 games played, 9 goals, 38 assists, and 47 total points. A 1.27 points per game. Hudson so far has a much higher point per game rate at 1.31. Folks, so far, this is history in the making. The reply here from Brian Wild himself says, the greatest single college season is Paul Kariya's. Next is Craig Simpson. What they had in common is the times they played in. The 80s featured high scores. That makes these numbers outstanding even more. Luke Hughes is a good comparison. His Draft Plus One, he was 41 games played and he had 39 points. We also had another tweet from Byron Bader showing off the Lane Hudson prospect development card. It is not too early. Here is the updated ranking from Byron Bader's overall database. He's a guy that does draft consultant work for Sportsnet, TSN, and The Athletic. For Lane Hudson and his overall character card, you could see that in his draft season, he's got an NHL E-score of 26 with the NTDP. This year, with the explosion of points that he has had, he's at a ranking of 40. But Lego, what in the heck does that mean? Well, if you go down in the chart, you'll see that according to Bader's model, which averages out prior NHL prospect data from different leagues and how they've translated into the NHL in the past, you could see that from this season's worth of play, Lane Hudson has an 81% chance of being an NHLer and a 69% chance of being a star. First off, that's a pretty nice percentage right there. Second off, Lane now has the right to walk in onto your stage and yell out, "I'm a star," to everybody, just like Mia Goth did. But if you go over to the comparables right here, this is where things get really interesting, because when you look at draft season comparable names, the first one that pops up on Bader's database is none other than Paul Coffey. Now, the next ones don't really make too much sense. I mean, Zach Bogosian's a big guy, so I don't really see how there's a comparison to be made there. Werenski, Ellis, Smith, these are all pretty talented names. And if you go over to the full comparison, which encapsulates all of the player's body of work, you could see that Michael Del Zotto is Lane Hudson's #1 comparison, which, yeah, I don't really know if that's a good thing. Del Zotto was really highly touted. Like, he was, but, yeah, he didn't really become a star in any respect. So, I mean, look, Jamie Drysdale is there, so is Phil Housley. There's a lot of good names that Lane Hudson is being mentioned alongside of. That in of itself is a good thing. But Paul Coffey, I feel, is the big one. The fact that he is on pace to beating out Brian Leetch's 80s rookie defenseman scoring record, that's wild. Or not rookie scoring defenseman record, but Draft Plus One season scoring defenseman record, whatever it is. But Lane Hudson is just a random second-round pick that the Canadiens made that happened to be really small, which is why he really slipped in the first place. But so far, the guy has been producing points like crazy, and he is on pace for having an absolutely historical year, that in which we have not seen in the past. Better than Adam Fox, better than Cale Makar, better than Quinn Hughes, and maybe even a lot of the other guys in the 80s. So, talk to the comments your thoughts about Hudson and the way that he's able to produce points. We didn't even talk about the points themselves. We just said, oh, we had 3 assists, and that's it. But, like, every time we talk about his highlights and the actual plays, it's always just mind-bogglingly good stuff where he's in the offensive zone, he's making the proper read, he's finding open space, he's shimmy-shammering his way around guys. He is such a treat to watch, and I think Canadiens fans are going to be super hyped up to see Lane Hudson eventually don the Canadiens sweater, despite only being 5'8". This is what I talked about, man. Caulfield 2.0. I know Hudson wasn't a 15th overall pick, and I know he didn't have the star power that Caulfield had because he wasn't playing with Jack Hughes last year, but Hudson and the Terriers are playing games in the NCAA every weekend, and so it gives us good breathing room to just refresh the palate and say, okay, what's Lane Hudson up to now? Oh, he's got 3 assists. Oh, he's got 17 points in 13 games. Oh, he's on pace for beating out Brian Leetch. That's pretty good, man. Talk to the comments your thoughts about Hudson and everything he's done so far. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 9, and bye.